All right, we are live at the Home Service Summit webinar series. Welcome to our show. I'm really excited about having Jeff Dudan here from Friend DevCo and the Dudan Group. Couldn't be more excited about the next 45, 50 minutes or so we spend together as we talk about his experience and so forth. My name is Scott Abbott, one of the co-founders of 5-Star Painting and the CEO of 5-Star Franchising and ProNexis. And our mission at ProNexis is to transform the customer experience in the home services industry through voice, chat, text, and instant booking. For those of you who have been here before, you know our format is pretty free-flowing. I'll ask Jeff a bunch of questions for the next 45 minutes and then open it up to all the listeners who are live here with us. You'll note that we're doing this through YouTube. And so in the comments section, at any point in time, you've got a question you want me to ask Jeff, just go ahead and put it in there whenever you'd like. At the end of our 45 minutes together, I'll go ahead and read from those questions and let Jeff answer them. Some quick housekeeping items. Our annual Home Service Summit's coming up here on February 17th and 18th. And this Sunday is the last day of our early bird registration where it's half off. And so if you use the word early bird, all caps, no space, you will qualify for that discount. And a little shout out on a fun fact. Over the last 13, 14 months we've been doing these, we've had 642 people come together to learn more about home services and home service franchising. I couldn't be happier with that. I didn't even know there were 600 people in home service franchising. So really excited to have as many of you partake and participate in what we're doing here together. Some sneak peeks into some of the speakers we've got coming in February at the Home Service Summit. We got Greg Nathan, the author of Profitable Partnerships, a great book on how to work with franchisees and make sure that we are working as a profitable partnership truly. Awesome speaker. He'll be one of our keynotes. Scott Stratton from Unmarketing. Not only is Scott brilliant, but he's also hilarious. So he'll definitely provide some comic relief. He'll be one of the keynotes as well. Make sure that you register and attend because it's gonna be awesome. As well, we got some panels that I want to kind of just highlight. We'll have Doug Keneally, the co-founder of Prince Equity Group, who's been very active in the home services space and acquisitions. He'll be hosting a panel on private equity and selling your company. We'll have Jam on from ClickText talking about digital marketing in the franchise sales arena. We'll have some of the best in the industry. Ryan Zink, founder of Franchise Fastlane, and Red Boswell, president of IFPG, will talk about working with different broker groups. Brandon Hare, the prior CDO of Neighborly, will be on talking about franchise development. I mean, I think he's been involved in thousands and thousands of franchises being awarded. And so hearing from him will be a real treat. And of course, you'll have all the time to be able to connect with people virtually through our virtual event for those 2 days in between sessions and get to know more people in the industry. So let me go ahead and make an introduction to Jeff. Jeff is the CEO of Dudan Group and is a franchise executive, author, and Forbes contributor and brand builder. The Dudan Group is a catalyst for enterprise growth in the franchise industry. Jeff founded the restoration and environmental services franchise concept Advantaclean and grew it to 240 locations in 37 states before exiting, and now participates in brands that include property services, fitness, business services, automotive, technology, education, and retail. Impressive, to say the least. He's also the author of a book called Discernment, the Business Athlete Regiment for a Great Life Through Better Decisions. I think you can actually see his book right behind him right there on the video. And he's represented...
Product placement. Got to have some product placement in there, Scott.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You're definitely... Jeff knows what he's doing. And what I also love about Jeff, he was brave enough to go on the CBS hit show Undercover Boss in January 2017. Before we jump too much into your background, let's just touch on that. I know I watched it. I think, that takes some guts, right? And some confidence to be able to stand up and get on TV and do a show like that, not knowing what the outcome will be after hours and hours of recording, not knowing exactly what's going to be the final product and how well, your brand will be presented. Tell us about that. Like, that must have been a little bit scary.
Scott, first of all, thank you for having me on the show today. I'm really excited to be here, and I've always respected what you've done in the industry, and just really looking forward to spend a little bit of time with you and catch up. But so, the Undercover Boss thing, I think it can be a little scary for people. There was a time when we had the opportunity to do it where we ran a pretty low profile in our hometown, and a lot of people didn't really know what we did or to the extent we did it in our friend groups and things like that. So, but we had a set of family values, and a couple of those values were fail fast and move forward and trust yourself to take chances. So, when we sat down and talked about it, and I said, hey, this has the opportunity. This might change some things for you, the way you're perceived at school. But if you live to your values and you're true to them, and it's not just lip service or what's up on the wall, then we knew we had to move forward and do it. And fortunately for us, the Advantaclean franchisees, they as hard as they looked far and wide, we ended up with some great franchisees who were really bought into the brand and trying to do their very best out there for the customers that we serve. So the show went well. We ended up with 4 great segments, and it was really a huge catalyst for things to come after that.
So you just touched on something I just can't help but just dig in a little bit more, because you mentioned something that to me is a reminder of what inspired me to do the same thing with my family. We have a set of family values that are up on our wall, and we talk about it very, very often. One of them is there's 4 L's, and one of them's learn. And the very first thing after that says make mistakes, and it's okay, right? Because you and I get little chills even talking about this, but to know that that's how you kind of govern your life as well. How many kids do you have? Just some quick, how many kids do you have? And I'm surprised that you involved them in this. It was a business decision, but it sounds like you took it to your kids as well.
Well, and I think there was a potential impact for them. I like to have a lot of conversations with my kids, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily get a vote just because they're involved. But so I have 3 children. I have a 23-year-old son, graduate from Elon University, is a finance and economics guy. I have a daughter at Clemson University, and I have one son in high school. He's 17. He's a junior.
Okay. So you got a handful. Yeah, that's
I do.
Awesome. Kids are great, and it sounds like most of them have made it through. I call it the tunnel. It's the age 13 through 17 when your best friends become your, in some cases, mortal enemies. I don't say that tongue in cheek, but raising kids isn't easy. Let's get into the background of the story. Like, what got you into franchising in Advantaclean and FriendDevCo? This kind of maybe just give us some background on what got you into the business.
Yeah, sure. I can. Maybe I'll go back just a titch farther. So I grew up in Chicago. I was primarily a basketball player there, and then we got a new football coach, and he wanted to throw the ball. So I was a junior in high school, and he came to the basketball team and recruited us to say, "Hey, could you guys come and catch some passes?" And that was really a change in my life. So I went off for the football team, decided it was something I wanted to pursue, and ended up pursuing that in college. Had a couple of false starts, and then I ended up finishing up at Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina. And when I was there, I wanted to stay there over the summer. Boone's a beautiful place. Coming from Chicago and going to the top of a mountain in the South was just an incredible change of scenery for me. And so I had worked the trades growing up. I had worked moving, I'd worked painting, I'd worked flat work, concrete, union jobs and all that kind of stuff. I was in the dog costume at Chuck E. Cheese.
Nice.
I was too tall to be the mouse. My legs were sticking out, but so I started the painting business because you could buy a paintbrush and a ladder, and I had a buddy who had a truck, and that's pretty much all you need to go into the painting business. And and so we went out and we ended up winning all of the student housing apartment contracts. So when the leases would change in the end of May and in the end of July, we would use the basketball players to cut in the ceiling who were there over the summer taking classes. The football players would use the rollers, and then we had the wrestlers running around a baseboard. So and we would paint 13 to 15 apartments in a day. So I actually got an insurance job to paint somebody's ceiling that had some water damage, and we turned in an estimate for maybe $900, and they said, but the numbers say this should be $3,000. We said, well, we'll take it. And so I got a little hint that I could price differently with insurance companies. So when I graduated, we were running the painting business, and I didn't take any job interviews because the business was providing for my needs. And then my younger brother had come out to take over the painting business and put himself through school. And then a buddy called and said, "Hey, this Hurricane Andrew, it hit South Florida." And my partner and I had a girlfriend. I said, "I'll be back in 3 weeks." And then 3 years later, I came back to the Carolinas to open up our second location. I'd gone down there and cut my teeth in the restoration industry, partnered with 3 other gentlemen, started the business in 1994 in Central Florida. And then I moved again back up to the Carolinas in 95 to start our second location. And very quickly, we became a $10 to $20 million a year restoration contractor, responding to every disaster. We became an accomplished government contractor, doing air duct cleaning, mold remediation, emergency services in hospitals and universities. And I bought my last partner out in 2004. And, things were going fine. We had a perfectly good business. The challenge was I was on the road the whole time. And so we hired some consultants, and I had been talking about franchising. As a matter of fact, we created our franchise entity in 2000, but it was a lack of focus leading to a lack of greatness. We were so busy doing the business of the business that I couldn't get any resources for the franchising. But we were muddling along and trying to figure it out. And then hired some consultants, and we really put a plan together where we could accomplish both the direct business and the franchise business. And then next year, Hurricane Katrina struck. So we responded to the Gulf Coast, and we went down there with our commercial teams, and we ended up doing about $100 million worth of work over the next 5 years. But I'll never forget, I was driving back from the Gulf Coast, and I was driving overnight to get to my son's one of his first football games, and I had been missing all of the preseason and everything, and I knew that I wasn't going to get to be there to see much of it. And I just made that decision. I said, this isn't the life that I want. I want to be home for dinner. And I made a decision in the middle of the night, driving through Atlanta on my way back to Charlotte, that I was going to sell all of my company stores under the franchise model and force ourselves to be a franchisor and commit to the franchising model. So in 2006, 7, and 8, we sold all of our company stores in the Carolinas and Florida under the franchise model. In 2009, we launched to the marketplace, and we had a fast start. If you remember, there was the great financial crisis, and there was a lot of people that were looking for something to do that wasn't big screen TVs or real estate. And we were recession resistant, third party payer, GRUD needs-based, high-margin services. And they weren't very sexy, but they sure were profitable and predictable. So we launched real fast, and we ended up, I saw something come up in my old Facebook feed where I was speaking in a panel at Springboard in 2013, and we already had 130 locations out there. So so that was it. And then fast forward to 2019, we sold the business to a great company, Home Franchise Concepts, out of Irvine, California, the parent company of Budget Blinds.
There's so much there to digest, and I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that, because I think we kind of ran a parallel path without really knowing it. We started 5-Star Painting as a franchise concept idea in 2004. 2005, we sold our very first location. We sold our corporate models in Winnipeg, Edmonton, Salt Lake, and Las Vegas. We had 4 different locations. We sold them all in those same years of 2006, 7, and 8. And we just sold a few years earlier than you did. That's all.
Interesting.
Yeah. I love, and the fact that you had the painting roots is just, I didn't know that. But I want to just dig in a little bit on something you just mentioned there. You said that, you described your business as a restoration company, really, but Advantaclean was mold remediation. Tell me more. Like, it's something you specialize at some point where you no longer were doing as much in restoration as you were before, and you became more focused. Is that right, or is that not really what happened?
No, that's right, Scott. That's a strategic decision that we made, and it's a great question. So, we looked at the space and very competitive space in the insurance restoration business, getting most of your work from insurance companies, and right, wrong, or indifferent. And I really don't, looking back on it, I don't have an opinion, and it wouldn't matter if I did. But what we decided to do was we decided to minimize or not do the fire damage restoration and the reconstruction, because what our experience was that those were the services that led to a lot of your capital being on the street, a lot of the punch list items, taking people's contents and packing them up, and it required a lot of facility. We had plants of all kinds of ultrasonic cleaning equipment and ozone rooms. I mean, we were a heavily facilities-based restoration type contractor. And really what we found was, at the time, it was our belief that a lot of our profit margin was coming from water damage, from duct cleaning, and from the mold remediation services. And what we tried to do was package up an offering that would be something that didn't require a physical plant for franchise owners to be able to operate, high margin services, but yet they were all complementary to one another. And they were things that, other than the water damage, that would be paid by, that could be sold to and paid for by an end user customer. So what that did in our model was that helped with cash flow. I mean, if you went and we ended up evolving into sealed crawl space systems as well. So anytime, moisture got somewhere it didn't belong, and it impacted the property by causing mold, which impacted the indoor air quality by, causing mold. We had a set of services that was specifically tailored for those situations. So that's what we did, right, wrong, or indifferent. And it was a nice talk track, and it was a nice competitive advantage to say, wow, I want to get into this field, but I'm really not sure that I want to be a general contractor, or I want to have a big warehouse and facility. It was a way for people to safely get into what we coined the term light environmental services space, which was kind of a subset of the restoration industry.
Do you think that by making that movement, because you spoke earlier about how you did a lot of work for insurance companies and the margins that came from that, right? And it sounds like you transitioned to more of a Mrs. or Mr. homeowner hiring you for different tools or different projects, and that honing in and focusing onto something. Would you say that's why your franchise concept was so successful, or do you believe you could have been more broad in terms of what you did as you had in the past?
Yeah, I think we could have. I think we could have gone either way. We had the technical expertise and the history to just go straight restoration and be another version of a ServPro or a Paul Davis Systems.
Yeah.
And that was our origin. So it's a little bit different positioning in the marketplace. The scale that we achieved would have lent itself towards getting those insurance contracts and that kind of thing. But we like the way we positioned it. And there's some really high margin, large jobs and crawl space jobs in the crawl space markets that there were. So yeah, no real regrets there. I think it was just kind of one or the other. And who knows if we would have stayed the original course where we would have ended up, but we were certainly happy with the outcome such as it was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can argue with that. That's for sure. And I think the lesson learned here is there's so many ways about doing your business right, and making a strategic choice to focus like that in the way you did has worked. And I think the other way could have worked as well. I think is what you're saying, right? Like I think both methods could have done it, but your choice has led to success that you wanted. And I'd like to maybe just ask the question, like you got at some point you were at 240 locations, which is super impressive across the United States. Did you start looking back and trying to maybe get back into, national contracts, insurance work, or did you stick with dealing with a homeowner mainly for the projects you're doing work for?
Well, so part of our national account portfolio included big box retailers, national property managers, national. So where we didn't necessarily need the insurance companies to feed us work, we still participated in insurance programs for the emergency water damage services. And so we still had a toe in the water per se in the insurance, but then we also were able to get contracts with, like I said, water, companies that provided commercial services in water treatment, property management services for retailers. And we had a strong capability in U.S. government contracting. So we would be able to, bid on or get sole source contracts or things like that from the U.S. government. So we still had our national accounts talk track, and we still were able to deliver national account revenue into the franchise network in that way.
I think that's, I want to just talk about this more because I think that's so important, right? You just hinted something that I think is really important for any home service concept. And we saw it at 5 Star Painting as well. And that is the need to deliver value to your franchisees. And one of the ways you did that was and it sounds like you had a team of national account reps. Were they salespeople that were out there hunting down contracts and bidding on work and passing on to franchisees? Maybe just talk to us about how you structured that and when you did that and how it worked for you.
So the nice thing for us is that when we decided to sell our company stores, we maintained we had already divided into what we called commercial services group and then local markets. So we
Yep.
basically just divested the local market offices, and then we maintained all of our staff, which was a highly talented group of project managers and estimators and salespeople
Uh-huh.
for continuing to work those national accounts. The difference is as we grew the franchise network, we started using the franchise network to perform the services.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's also worth digging on. I mean, clearly, if a franchisee does the work on their own, they did their own marketing, they land the job, they pay the royalty. What was your royalty that you guys charged?
We were a 10% royalty, and for us that included pretty extensive marketing services and call center services.
Oh yeah, you rolled it all together into one fee.
Mhm.
Love it.
Yes.
Yeah, 10% sounds about right. It's funny when I look at my 5-star paying days. While our royalty was around 5%, when you added together those things you mentioned, the call center and the software, it all came up to be about 10-11%.
Yeah, that was a genius attack we had early, and I don't know if it was right or not, but it worked out.
Yeah, it did. So maybe if you would mind talking to when a national account rep won a project for one of your franchisees, was there an additional fee on top of that 10% because it was a national account that was won to pay the salespeople and the project managers and so forth?
Yeah, 100%. There was and it depended upon what the contract was.
Yeah.
So the way we did it, it was those services were royalty free, and then our national account affiliate remitted a reduced royalty back to the franchisor. So really, it was almost as if our affiliate was a different type of franchisee.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then they remitted across the hallway, they remitted a lesser royalty over, and then there was a margin that was retained by that affiliate company, and
Got
when
it.
they
Yeah.
subcontracted the work to the franchisee, because they had a nice overhead that they had to
Yeah, of
feed.
course. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Did you find your franchisees, would you say that helped you win jobs because you could talk about like, here's a team of people winning big contracts that they're just going to hand to you? Was that a differentiator for you?
Yeah, it's when you're awarding franchisees, it's a big advantage.
Yeah.
And then it's and I've talked with. It's funny. I've fielded this call from multiple franchisors trying to figure this out.
Mm,
So, I mean, ideally, a franchisee is going to get more margin when they sell something directly in their local market.
yep.
So, as franchisees would become more and more successful, and they would have a conflict between a national account opportunity and a local job, they would do the local job in favor of the greater margin
Yeah.
and the quicker pay time. The other thing is when you're dealing with, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if you say you're going to work for, a company that has retail all across the country, there's going to be some margin suppression on the front end going in the door. They're going to negotiate hard,
Yeah.
and you've got to deliver the services. So yeah, it was, however, some of those jobs were large. Some of them were complicated. Some of them were great. I mean, it did create, challenges because you have service level requirements from
Yep.
these national accounts, and,
Mhm.
you can't have franchisees turning the jobs down and going
Yeah.
out, and like, well, I'm sorry, we can't get anybody to go out. So there was
Yeah.
always a bit of a yin and a yang there. I know you probably you experienced the same thing, but
Yeah.
it's worth doing, because at the end of the day, we're all here to make the franchisees most successful. If we can always do right by the franchisees, and I mean, what am I going to say? Hey, you're making a lot more money doing that local job, down at the church. I don't want you to leave that in favor of. I want you to do what's in your best interest. I want you to do what's right for you.
Yeah. And it also sounds like you had people maybe coordinate, like sometimes franchisees would travel, it sounds like, to do jobs or projects because other franchisees couldn't do it.
Yeah, what's nice is it's chicken and egg. So it's hard to sell national accounts when you don't have enough distribution points.
Yeah.
But when you do have enough distribution points, if one franchisee was too busy to take a national account job, then the way our contract was set up, that we had the right to either fly somebody out and self-perform if it was important enough, or
Yep.
send somebody in. And we had a bunch of franchisees that were resourced enough, and they would travel
Yeah.
to go and do the job. So we were generally able to manage it, and it's it was definitely worth doing.
Awesome. This is, we spent more time on this than I probably wanted to spend, but this is some gems and some real gold that we're digging up. So I'm sure all our listeners appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'd like to maybe jump back into, you mentioned earlier, like you really got going in franchising in 2008. right when the whole world was just kind of falling apart. And I asked you a question backstage, if there's a moment in time when you were looking at your business and thought, I just, I'm done. It's too hard. And you gave me an answer that I thought was really compelling. Please share. Have you had difficult moments? How'd you get through those? And how'd you make it?
So I think my next book is going to be called Too Stupid to Fail. I have a really, it's funny. And I have a group of franchisors in my building today, and we had a session this morning, and we were going over our Dudan group values. And the first one is grit. And and I had one of my long 25-year coworkers in there with me. And, we looked at it and we never thought about quitting. When I bought out my last partner in 2004, if I looked on the balance sheet, I was $4 million in debt, based on the debt I agreed to service and the debt that I agreed to pay to him. And we didn't have any franchises. We had a nice direct business going. We had a franchise program. We had a UFOC, I guess at the time is what it was. But,
I remember that.
I had really big eyes, and I had a really big heart, and I had a really big motor. And I just, one of the things is that, there's certain things that only leaders can do and that are really important for leaders to do. Live your values. I mentioned earlier that, I made a decision to sell sell all of our stores under the franchise model, but that's because your true values are what you tolerate. And, I couldn't say that I was a family guy and then, proceed to spend the next 20 years on the road. Mm-hmm. So, your true values are what you tolerate. But the other one is, one of the other things is, leaders bring energy, but leaders have to speak a bold and powerful future into existence. And, back in I had always talked with all of our employees since the late 90s that we were going to franchise this company and that we were going to be a national company. We were going to have 1,000 locations. Well, we didn't get to 1,000 locations, but we had a talk track that was relatively consistent from the very beginning about what we were going to do. And it's incumbent upon the leader to over and over and over again speak a bold and powerful future into existence. Because if the leader doesn't do it, who's going to do it? And then how do people know what they're making progress against if there's not a clear, articulated vision for what the purpose, meaning, and direction of a company is? So, yeah, we never we knew what it was. It took me I had the business 24 years and 11 months before I sold it. So I didn't make it 25 years, but I mean, did I ever think it was going to take that long? No. Did I ever think that I was going to face at some point, I'm sure we faced bankruptcy if a main supplier or customer didn't pay us, or if we caught the wrong lawsuit at the wrong time. There was times we were very vulnerable over the course of that 25 years where we might've been forced out of action. But, when a challenge came up, cash flow, staffing, legal, whatever it was, we just sat down and said, and we just, it never crossed our mind that we were probably as much at risk as we were, or quitting. So like I said, I was, and it's too stupid to fail. Those aren't my words. I had one of the smartest guys that ever worked for me. He bestowed that on me before he left.
Oh, that's I'm gonna remember that. And I thank you for sharing so openly around that. I think there's every business has its challenges, right? I love the fact that you can put that into a one-word sentence, which is grit. Like you need to power through. And I know there's been moments where in our business career and partnership, I have a co-founder at 5-Star Painting and 5-Star Franchising, where it's been really, really difficult moments where, as you've mentioned before, cash flow gets tight. Lawsuits. I mean, it seemed as you're talking, we just my co-founder and I was up in the office, Chad Jones. We're talking about this moment in time where we had a franchisee that was fax blasting, and on his own, and then we got looped into a class action lawsuit for every fax blast he ever hit to every do not call number, and it's like those moments, and we all had those where you get hit with something that came out of nowhere, and somehow you're dealing with now hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees to try and defend yourself, and how do you manage all of that? But grit is a great way of describing how you do get through it. And so for those listeners who are maybe having a tougher time, that is a great motivational speech that Jeff just shared with us. So thank you. So, at some point you grew the business to 240 locations and it felt like it was time to move on. Maybe just talk to us about like how you came to that decision. It's a really big one. Almost 25 years, a quarter of a century building something. How did you get to that point? And maybe tell us about the process that you went through.
Sure. So, I don't know if founders ever really get comfortable that it's the right time to sell your business. And I can only imagine that there's a variety of factors that go into it for people. For me, I was, I had been in the saddle again for almost 25 years. And I had been in the same industry for 25 years. And during the last 5 years of that, I had started working with other franchisors. First of all, one thing about me is I'm a coach, and I coached over 30 youth sports teams for my children over the course of their growing up. And I always, I like to help people. I'm a coach at heart. I really enjoy connecting dots for people. Anything that I've ever learned, if it's of use to somebody, I really look forward to sharing it with them. And people reach out to me all the time, and I always make time to talk to people about it. And I really knew that what I had learned over the 25 years, and particularly the last 13, 14 years in franchising, that I could more broadly help more people with it. But I better get about it, because I was 49 years old at the time when I started really committing to sell the business. And I knew that I wanted to make another run and be relevant and that kind of thing. So that timing played into it a little bit for me. And then also, one thing, we're really close friends with the Gibbs family, Joe Gibbs. And, unfortunately, JD, his son, passed away a few years ago from a brain condition. And we were at his memorial service. And one thing that they said that JD used to say all the time was, we have to make the best possible decision that we can make for the families that we're responsible for. And as I thought about Advantaclean, and I thought about my staff, and I thought about the great franchisees, some of which I am incredible friends with and have a tremendous amount of respect for, and are still operating and leading the system, I thought, they could use more. I mean, I don't know that I have anything else to give these people. I've given them everything that I know, everything that I have. And if I could find a great partner that was properly resourced, that was a cultural fit, and there was alignment there, maybe with a bigger company that had more distribution and more synergies and things that they could bring to these franchisees that I just hadn't been able to or wouldn't be able to, I thought that that would be a good time to do it. And then, of course, you have to look at the dollars and cents of it. The market seemed to be high. I watched people like Scott and other people that I respected greatly making the decision to divest some or all of their businesses. And I said, well, you never know how long it's going to be like it is. So now's as good. Now, it just seemed like a confluence of those factors for me led me to a point that would be good. But I'll tell you what really, I'm now thinking back on it, Scott, and I appreciate it. Are you going to charge me for this? Do I have to lay down on the couch? What kind of tree do I want to be? No,
I'm getting more out of it than you are. I trust me.
Yeah. Thank you for this therapy. So I think, so one of the things that I did, and I think the catalyst for me, you mentioned it, was learning and getting in a bigger room. So I had always been in Vistage, and Vistage was a great thing for me to do monthly and be with other business owners and learn from speakers and consultants that came in every month, a slow drip of education that I never really had. I mean, I never worked anywhere else. That can be an impediment if you didn't have an exposure to anything else. You're reading books and trying to figure it all out. I joined YPO, and Young Presidents Organization, for you that don't know it, is you generally have to get in before you're 45. I had joined an exemption. I got in, I think somebody got me in at 46. I joined a new chapter. I'd gotten to leadership. And YPO is 27,000 CEOs and presidents worldwide. If you added up all of our businesses together, it'd be the third largest economy in the world behind the US and China. There's a 24-hour global callback rule. So I really got into YPO. And not only I got in, I served in a new and emerging chapter as a secretary and a learning chair. And And ultimately, I served as the chair of the organization in my 5th year and 6th year. So it was, I got around these people, and lo and behold, there was all these successful people, and most of them have either sold a business or built multiple businesses. So I kind of changed the room. When you change the room you're in, it changes your view of the world, and it changes your perspective. So I really, right now, we work with many family offices and people. I mean, people like, the Ben Carson family or the Frisbee family. We work with a lot of people that and get a chance to be around people that, just weren't in my circle before. With that really opened my eyes and kind of gave me the courage to say, hey, there might be more out here in the world for you. And, oh, by the way, don't fall in love with your work so much that you don't do the right thing with it when it's time.
That was so, Jeff. This is so enjoyable. I really appreciate it. And for those of you that there's a requirement, right, to join YPO, you have to be, I think it's $10 million in revenue a year in the business.
It depends on the kind of business you are. I think if some of them, sometimes it's 22 million or 10 million or 15 million. It depends. Are you an agency business or what kind of business you are? But yeah, it's pretty material requirements to get in.
So what I'll do is I'll just make a shameless plug here as I belong to an organization that's very similar to YPO and follows a similar track to you as well. As the president of the chapter in Utah of EO Entrepreneur Organization. I'm on the global board right now of the global membership committee board for the world, and it has been transformational, as you mentioned, right? One of the best things you could ever do for yourself as an individual is surround yourself by people that know how to lead and grow businesses. And seeing that from different lenses, right? Because the entrepreneur journey is the same for all of us, although it might be in different industries. And so being around people who are dealing with similar problems, recruiting good top talent, retaining top talent, all that is as you can find with an organization like Vistage, YPO, EO. I couldn't agree more that if you aren't part of an organization like that, you should be looking at that as a way to help you grow as a leader. So that brought you to the decision to pull the trigger and sell the business. And then, did you know, Jeff, what your plan was after selling Advantaclean? Did you know that you were going to form Dudan Group and what you wanted to do there, and Friend Devco? Talk to us how you went, what you did in your mind to get to the point where you knew the next steps were in your career.
Well, I didn't specifically know prior to the transaction with Advantaclean. I was already invested in other brands and some other support businesses in the franchise industry, some marketing companies and things like that. So I had already started leveraging some relationships and, divesting my holdings and whatnot. So one of the things that I did was, again, I'd mentioned my brother had taken over the painting business. Well, he put himself through college. I had bought a little house while I was in college there, owner financing 100%, probably overpaid for it. But, you got to trust yourself to take chances and default to action. So he was living in the house, put himself through college, ran the painting business. He went to Arthur Andersen as an accountant, and then he took a job with the Carolina Panthers, and he ended up as the CFO of the Carolina Panthers. And he helped lead the sale from the Richardson Group to the Tepper Group back in when the Carolina Panthers was sold. And then after that, and he had been there 16 years, and he was looking for a bit of a change. So I said, hey, let's create a family office, and let's take some of our resources that we have, and let's manage these and invest these, and let's build inside of this franchise space and leverage what we both know. So that's what we did, and we set out to do that. And of course, he had to unwind where he was, and we had made an investment in a company called Rockbox Fitness, where we had acquired.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Rockbox, we acquired them, 2 locations. I didn't know I had actually worked with Devin Klein at Burn Boot Camp. And I don't know if you're familiar with Burn Boot Camp. They have over 300 locations open, but him and Morgan, they're incredible business owners, super high energy, very successful in the fitness industry. And, I had mentioned that I like to coach, right? So I actually had built a small Class A 2-story office building in downtown Huntersville. And Devin and Morgan, they were engaged at the time. This would have been 2000, gosh, I don't know, 2009, 2010, something like that. And they had a boot camp in a parking lot. And he had just been released from professional baseball, but he had found some success. He said, hey, they came in and I had a vacancy on the bottom floor. And they came in and said, hey, we got this boot camp. We got several hundred members. We're looking for a place. We don't have any credit. We don't have any money. And we've been turned down for 30 leases. And, sometimes, and your franchisors out there, you have to make a decision. Are you going to do a deal based on the paper, or are you going to do a deal based on the people? And I said, well, tell me what you want to do. He's like, man, we're going to do the work ourselves. We're going to paint the walls. We got this floor. It's all battle ropes. Man, $30,000, we can upfit this place. And we already have the members. And, for no good reason at all, I gave them the space. And 2 years later, they had an incredibly successful business. We were arguing over parking the entire time. And then he came to me, he said, and I had told him, I said, this is pretty sexy. You should think about franchising it. So he came into the building we're still in today, and we got up on the whiteboard and I put at the top of it, happy and profitable. These are the two goals. And then I put the word validation, and we just started we started at the top of the house, and we talked about franchising for 4 hours, and that turned into another 4 hours, another 4 hours. And, lo and behold, years later, he's one of the fastest growing and most successful fitness franchisors in the industry. And we're great friends, and, his family, and they have 3 kids now, and we all get together. So, yeah, so I had, I did, wow, so I kind of got my taste in fitness. So I was introduced to these guys with Rockbox, and they had done an incredible job with this brand. Long story short, they had a couple locations open. They had some success awarding, the friends and family round of franchises, and they had their documents and everything. So I invested with them and in a majority way. And we have over 140 locations sold. We'll have 60 locations open by the end of the first quarter. And we did that in 2.5 years. So we're real happy with that. And then we've got a platform, a health and wellness platform, where we've actually got an offering coming out, bringing to market right now in the personal service infrared sauna space here called Beam. So we got a platform growing there, and they're great partners. And, I do my thing, which is, kind of all the franchise expertise stuff. And these guys love the fitness industry, and, they're learning to be great franchisors. So yeah. So I didn't know but I did that before Advantaclean. I kind of made that decision, and several other things. And Fran Devco really came about. I said, well, if I'm going to be in franchising, then I know how important franchise development is. And I really wanted to make sure that we had the very best in talent available to me. And the best way I could do that was to build a business unit around it. So created a company called Fran Devco, which is outsourced franchise sales organization. And then subsequent to that, also created a company called Franchise Genesis. Next year, or this year rather, we'll probably help about 120 franchise brands get into business with their legal and their operations manual, and kind of their initial marketing and education.
So if I could summarize, because there's a lot to unpack there. You're a busy person. There's no question, and that's like the why I love entrepreneurs. The amount of energy you guys have is amazing. But yeah, so you have a for contract. Fran Devco does franchise sales for franchisors looking to outsource franchise sales, right? That's one of your core businesses.
That's correct.
The Dudan Group owns multiple franchise type concepts. So you're an owner, investor, or part owner in multiple, sounds like fitness and some other concepts right now. And then is it Fran Genesis? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Franchise Genesis. So if you're not franchised yet, and you need to create a franchise program, that's what that company does.
So you're actually helping people from the ground up. Like, I have an idea, I have one location, and now I need to I want to start franchising it. And so you've got legal support, marketing, I'm assuming as well.
100%.
That is, and are these companies all within the Dudan Group in your offices there, or do you have them kind of run separately? How do you kind of treat them?
Yeah, so I think, and I think this is a lesson, Scott, and I'd be interested in your feedback on it. Like how do you do a variety of things and and be a good partner and make sure your partners are happy. So people are always okay as long as they know where they stand up front.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott, I know that you've got multiple businesses and you've been very successful with it. So I can only assume that you're a great partner, and that when you enter into a partnership with business partners, that you say, these are the things that I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And these are the things that I'm good at. And if you're going to do these other things, then we've probably got a business here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, entering into that, and, the best direction to ride a horse is in the way it's going. So like so my value is, I get to do I get to do more and more of the things that I like to do every day, which is strategy. I get to strategize around the industry. I get to sell. I get to talk to emerging brands and established brands about how we can help them grow their franchise business. And then Dudan Group, our main value is that we have a university, and that we provide, to our clients and our partner companies. I mean, we provide education that's, kind of like you hear here. It's from people that have actually built brands and exited brands and done every piece of it. So we kind of have an ecosystem here where we're our own best customers. So
Yep.
any of the brands that we invest in, or any of the brands that we are helping support, I mean, on the other side of and we're not all in the same building. So we're spread around a little. We've grown out of, we tend to launch companies in my building here in Huntersville, North Carolina. And then they have to, like kids, they got to grow up and go out and find their own space. But
They got to move out.
Yeah. But everybody's working remote now anyway. So
yeah, it's a new world, isn't it?
It is.
And I couldn't agree more. One of the, as I have the same approach to franchising as I have to partnerships, and that is, I need to be providing value to the franchisees for them to pay me royalties. As a partner, I need to be providing value to the partnership, and so I try to make sure I focus on where I can add the most value, so that ultimately I have satisfied franchisees and business partners. So I couldn't agree more with some of the things you said there. I've got some questions coming in, but I've got one more that I wanted to ask you before we jump into that. For a startup franchisor, and it sounds like you're involved very much with a lot of new concepts, what would you say is the most important hire they need to make?
That's a great question. And I thought about that, and I struggle with the answer. So first of all, you have to simultaneously solve for franchise sales and for franchise support, because it doesn't do you any good to sell a bunch of franchises and then under support them and not have them be successful. So from the moment that you award a franchise, there needs to be somebody there that says, here's your pre-opening, here's the 32 steps of the things you need to do. They need to feel whatever was promised to them from the moment that they were exposed to your brand, through the franchise sales process, through the executive interviews and meet the team, discovery, or confirmation day, whatever you call it. Like, that has to continue immediately after the sale. So, having good operations people. Now, a lot of times franchise companies are people that have been running their business for years and they're very good at it. So they have people available that are authentic and talented and knowledgeable in whatever the business is. So making sure that you have properly resourced franchise onboarding and support in that first 90 days is extremely critical, because the way a franchise operates after 90 days is the way they're going to want to operate forever. And after that, everything's change management. So you really want to make sure that you're kind of heavy on the initial training and support. But if you don't have franchises, then who are you going to train? So
you don't have much to worry about.
Yeah.
It is a little bit of chicken and the egg. I think thankfully a lot of entrepreneurs, and clearly yourself as well, Jeff, you kind of have that sales gene, right? The natural ability to sell ideas or paint a vision, or in many cases attract your first franchisees. And so I think for many of you who are listening, I think franchise sales may come natural, but I couldn't agree more that if you don't support them properly and have the right ops people to clean up and make sure that they're all taken care of, you're not going to have many franchises to sell after that. So.
No. And then I kind of got another answer that says, there's four things really that I've observed that cause franchises to, increase their chances of success. Number one, you need a business that's good for people, meaning it's a business that a reasonably talented person with pretty good effort could be successful in. It can't be so hard. It can't be like flying a jet, a fighter jet. It's got to be something that every man can do, or every woman or every person, has the opportunity. If they focus on it, they should be able to have some success doing it. The second thing is, you got to have, you got to have a franchise guru, or you got to have somebody tell you, or you got to get some franchise wisdom from somewhere. Because if you're guessing at what needs to be done, and you're spending your money and you're using your resources on things that are either out of order or not as important, then your validation is going to suffer. So, I think about finding you got to find a mentor, you got to find a coach, you got to find some resources, because really franchising, depending on what space you're in, I mean, there's just a lot of fundamentals that if you try to stumble through them like I did, I mean, it took me 15 years to get to market. And I didn't have the intellectual humility just to go out and just ask people for help. So maybe the first person that they need to find would be a coach or a mentor.
I like how you just express that, the intellectual humility. I find that a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, was so overconfident in my own abilities, and yet I had no idea what I was doing. I made so many mistakes my first 5-10 years of franchising. I can't believe it, but great way of assessing that.
All avoidable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let me get to our audience here. First, Janice Charles was just chimed in and said, Jeff is the best of the best. I don't know if there's a question. I think it was a statement. I think we all can agree that he's phenomenal, and we're great to have him on here. Thanks, Janice.
Thank you, Janice. Right back at you, Janice.
Matt Kelton has a question for us. Matt, thanks for joining us. His question is, how did you deal with franchisees who were unwilling to staff at appropriate levels and did not meet minimum spend on local marketing?
Well, so that would indicate that they are, so they're underperforming. So you would identify that, as underperforming. And I think a lot of, you put your franchisees into kind of a red, yellow, green category. And then you dig in and you try to find the root cause for, where people aren't following the plan. And then you would, there's really just a process with your franchise business coaches of engaging them. So I think the question behind the question is, how do you influence franchisees to follow the plan? And, following the plan is the most critical thing for franchise owner success, and making sure that they're doing all the things that are necessary. So I think you can influence them by logic and data. So what you would do, and benchmarking. So you would say, all right, well, here is all the advertising spend of all the top performing franchises. Here's where everybody stack ranks in terms of performance, and here's where they spend. Here's where your performance is, and here's what your spending is. Here's the data that says if you spend these dollars in these ways, this is the ROI that people are getting. So you have to understand, like, why are they not spending the money? Is it that they don't have the money? Is it that they're risk averse? Is it that they actually don't want to go out and do the jobs if they get the leads? Or is it just that they don't understand and they haven't had the dots connected for them from a data-driven, logical, non-emotional perspective as to, why they need to spend the money? But, getting franchisees 1% better every day is kind of the goal of your franchise business coaches. I think that's from Atomic Habits.
Yeah,
but
it is.
Getting 1% better every day. There's always a lever to pull to get a little nudge better of performance. So, and what's the second part of the question? It was not spending your advertising dollars, which, there's a fact pattern that you can establish that will, hopefully convince them to do it. And then if they don't do it, then you got to figure out, is it, is it can't or won't? I can't spend it because I don't have it, or I won't spend it because I don't believe in it. And I think the same thing. Now, staffing, it's funny. So all franchisees are not created equal. And leadership and the ability to do the people piece well, right? So is it a control issue? They don't want to, they think they're the only ones that can do it. They never did this business before in their life. They come to training. Now they're doing it, but they don't believe anyone else can do it. Is it they're trying to keep all the money themselves? What's the question behind the question? But generally, we're very much leadership focused in all of our trainings that we do. We focus an incredible amount, especially today with how difficult it is to staff, on how to create a great work environment, how to be a values forward organization, and create a place where people want to work and want to be. Everything from the causes that you do to the incentives that people get, but mainly, how you treat people at work. So, but they're not all great leaders. A lot of them are doers, and it's definitely a challenge getting people to staff appropriately, especially if your business has some seasonality to it where they're staffing up and down at certain times. So always a challenge getting the franchisees to properly staff.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's worth pointing out as well. You mentioned this, and that is, using data to lead or to show and to bring people to some place and making conclusions. And I think what's critical is you make sure you have the data. I think is probably what I come back to, right? If you're not currently capturing what people are spending as a percentage of marketing, if you're not currently capturing what that marketing does for ROI, it's hard to kind of show franchisees that that's going to work. So
right.
Let me get to the next question here from Zach Nolte. Good to see you, Zach. Thanks for joining us. Being a family man and entrepreneur, any advice on how to maintain that work-life balance while staying healthy?
Well, Zach, I've seen you, and you're extremely healthy. So you don't have that problem, but the rest of us, no. So look, somebody stood up at a seminar and asked Jack Welch, the CEO of GE, he said, how you've acquired 200 businesses, and you built this incredible company. How do you maintain a work-life balance? And he said, I don't. So, I mean, look, I would encourage everybody with every decision they make in their life to drive themselves deeper into their purpose. There's a great book called The On Purpose Person. And it kind of runs you through this tennis style tournament to figure out what your purpose in life is, what's the most important things to you, and drive yourself deeper into your purpose. And, but the reality of it is, man, I sacrificed a lot. I mean, I would get up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. to do things. And then I'd work for 5 hours so that I could show up at my kids' play at school. It all has to get done. And, the world doesn't conspire to make you wealthy, rich, or successful. You have to, it's a take business, and you've got to show up every day, and you got to show up the right way. So, but you have to decide for yourself what the balance is inside of that. I mean, now I did use, I think that, I was very fortunate in the way that I dealt with my kids, in terms of, I said, the age of accountability is 14 years old. I've taught you right from wrong and everything that I know, and now it's up to you. And I let them get their own consequences. So I didn't micromanage. I hire well and manage little. That's what Buffett says. So but I mean, it's a challenge. You have to stay healthy because your energy is really, really important. Your team will only be a subset of your energy. So you've always, as a leader, got to bring the most energy. And to do that, you got to eat right. You got to get your sleep. You got to exercise. You got to show up the right way. But the balance is up to you, because, all of the great things happen out on the edge where the air is thin. That's where everything great happens. I mean, if you're living in the center of everything, brother, you're just taking up space.
I'll throw something on here that I learned from my father that he did really well. And I think it's this idea of, there's balance, which is this idea you're trading off time for time. Someplace like my business, my community, my family all has to trade in some way, time for time. Then there's integration, where I pull together these worlds in some way, where by putting them together, I can get what I want. And so as an example, I've got 5 kids, and I am an entrepreneur. I've been my whole life, and I want my kids to learn some of those values. And so I integrate as much as I can my kids into some events I'm doing. So every year every quarter, I bring one of my kids on a business trip where they attend either a conference or some event, and I spend time with them, and they get to see business and myself working in my industry and learning from that at the same time. So that's maybe a little business family hack you could leverage.
No, I think that's brilliant, because again, knowing what you do and the value that you bring, those worlds now interact and they overlap. So you can't be everything to everybody, and you have to say no to certain things. But if you know who you are, what you stand for, the value that you bring, and the priorities that you have in your life, then you have to integrate. I like the way you said it. You have to integrate and overlap those things.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been great. We're at the top of the hour. Jeff, we could go on for an hour if we wanted to, but and then very, very enjoyable. Thank you to all our listeners who chimed in and had some thoughts and questions. And this video will be made available on YouTube for those that are tuning in later on. And we look forward to seeing you in February. Thanks again, Jeff.
Cheers, Scott. Thank you.